Hello world, welcome to the 161st Climate Change Emergency Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It is January 7th, 2022, and next week will be January 14th, 2022 for the 62nd Climate Change Emergency Protest. This is number 161. The CO2 level in the atmosphere right now is approximately 418.3 parts per million. As I said before many times, the safe zone is 280 parts per million. And that was back in the year 1770, where temperatures didn't change at all. Basically, it fluctuated somewhat, but it's basically a stable environment. Now, with the equivalency of methane thrown in, the carbon dioxide equivalency is anywhere between 500 and 900 parts per million. So we're way above the 280 parts per million limit that we should be at. You have several organizations, 350.org, that says that 350 is a safe zone. It is not. That is a death sentence. That leads to feedback loops, and we end up basically where we are right now. Feedback loops include, for example, the Arctic, where you can have heating of the Arctic, which contributes to ice loss and albedo loss of the snow and reflectivity of the sun back in the atmosphere. The less ice you have and the less snow you have then as a result of that. And then you end up with permafrost melting or thawing. Carbon dioxide or methane comes out of the permafrost layer and then goes in the atmosphere, which is 162 times more potent in the first 2 years as a greenhouse gas than as carbon dioxide. So that spins back into the feedback loop of causing more heat, which causes more ice loss, which causes more albedo loss, and eventually you end up into a rain situation, which happened in Greenland, where it rained on Greenland's highest peak recently, I think it was last summer, as opposed to snow. That has never happened before. So we're into a situation where we're into many feedback loops, and there are at least 65 feedback loops, if not over 100. And it's a bad situation, and in order to get back to no feedback loops, you have to get the carbon dioxide below 280 parts per million, and that's not about to happen in our gritty environment. Eventually it will, and that'll be millions of years from now. It'll get back to 280, and life will go on, if there is any life left. So 50% of all the emissions that have ever been emitted in the atmosphere happened since 1990. 50% of all the emissions that have ever happened for carbon dioxide have happened since 1990. That is hard to believe. And if you really want to get ridiculous, 33% of all the carbon dioxide ever emitted in the atmosphere has been since 2005. That's in the last 16 years. So that's insane. Coronavirus has destroyed the economies of many world economies and causing a slow rebounding. And also hospitals are inundated. But what do you think is going to happen with climate change when it's like so much severe than this coronavirus? It's way off the charts compared to coronavirus. You're going to end up with mass casualties, starvation, social unrest, floods, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, mass migration of refugees. You're seeing that now happening around the world. Entire island nations of the world are going to be swamped with the rising sea levels once the glaciers continue to melt, such as the Thwaites Glacier has potential by itself to raise sea levels 2 to 4 feet. Island nations of the world will be swamped. Bangladesh is going to be swamped. You're talking hundreds of millions of people having to leave their countries, their homelands, and find some safer place to live. And it's doubtful whether a lot of countries will allow that number of people to come into their country. As we see in the United States, that they decide to erect a wall rather than open arms. And there's more than enough land to support everyone, but we're choosing not to. So with this situation going on, you end up voting the same people in, whether it's one party or the other around the world. And you end up with the same type of people no matter what. It's different faces, but the attitudes and the actions are the same as it's always been. It doesn't matter who's in charge right now. It's all greed, and it's all set in motion as to what they're going to do, and you know it's coming, and yet everyone's surprised when your lead politician doesn't do anything. You know, they don't set the world on fire as far as getting things done. They're literally setting the world on fire by not getting things done or going in the opposite direction of which way we should be going. Carbon dioxide keeps going up. It's not going down, and anyone who tells you so is absolutely lying about it. You throw methane and nitrous oxide into the mix for greenhouse gases, and we are so far off the charts of survivability, it's not even funny. People worried in the past and now about artificial intelligence taking over. Well, what do you think is going to happen with climate change when it runs out of control? You get runaway greenhouse heating of the environment, runaway climate change or greenhouse effect. Things are just not going in the direction we need it to go. And as Greta Thunberg says, all this is blah, blah, blah by the politicians. They say they're going to do something, as in the COP26 failed conference on climate change, and nothing got done. So politicians, whether they're local or regional or national or federal politicians around the world, they need to be totally versed in climate change before you vote for them. Please stop voting for the one party or the other and actually listen to the politicians and demand that they do something about this. You're probably not recognizing, or many people aren't recognizing there's a problem. And they need to get totally versed as to what's happening, and the politicians need to be totally versed as to about climate change and what's happening. No more lip service. They need to have a clear and present plan. They can't just say, oh, it's an existential threat, and then not do anything about it or do heinous things in the opposite direction. We don't have till 2070, as the Prime Minister of India said, Modi, about cutting back on coal. 2070, are you kidding me? We don't have till 2050. We don't have till 2030. We don't have 10 years. We had 10 years 30 years ago, all right, or 40 years ago. We don't have a carbon budget, as some people are saying. There's no more carbon you can put in the atmosphere and continue to have a safe environment. We're way past that. The doomsday clock says we're 1 minute to midnight, and in reality, we're 5 minutes past midnight. We have to work our way back to get to midnight. So, and this 1.5 degree limit that they're willing to sacrifice us for, and say, oh, we can warm up to 1.5 and not have horrendous effects. That is an absolute friggin' lie. You're seeing the effects right now. Things are out of control already. You have tornadoes in Saudi Arabia, for God's sake. You have tornadoes in South Africa, tornadoes in Israel. You have giant flooding going on. In the last 3 days, this has been happening. Not in the last year, not in the last whatever. This last 3 days. You have flooding in Indonesia, you have flooding in Kuwait, Afghanistan, Iran, Uruguay in South America, Mexico, Oman, Paraguay, Malawi in Africa, and Pakistan. You've had hail in Egypt, of all things, Iran, Australia, and Argentina. This is all in the last 3 days. You have fire in Spain going on, wildfires. You have volcanoes in Polynesian Indonesia, and snow in Saudi Arabia, Japan, and the USA, like we're having it here, which we should. But it's the amount of snow that you can get in the mountains due to increased water vapor because the air holds more moisture because it's warmer than ever before. So you get these giant floods or giant amounts of snow. So you have earthquakes going on right now in Taiwan. And why are you talking about earthquakes, Jim? Why are you talking about volcanoes? This is my own personal theory, and hopefully it'll be agreed to in the future, that when glaciers melt, it causes a weight shift. Instead of the weight being where they are right now, the glaciers melt, dump all that heavy weight into the oceans, and then it shifts around the Earth, and it's going to cause plate tectonic shifts, which leads to more earthquakes. So someone can check that out, whether that's reality or not. I think it will make sense eventually to people that, hey, things are changing dramatically and we don't know why. Well, I think it's because the weight is shifting around the planet. And we also run into a chance the axis tilting more one direction or the other. Supposedly the Earth is now tilted 21 feet farther over to one side than what it had been. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but every little bit changes everything else. So politicians need to refuse, or politicians are refusing to move on climate change. They're doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing. Are they stupid? Are they corrupted? Or is it something else? That's up to the public to decide that, and people do their research as to what the real reason is. The fact is that politicians are not taking positive action. No plan, no forethought, about the world or the United States. You see the politicians around the whole world are doing the same thing. It's not just the United States that's a bunch of dummies, even though we're leading the world in dummy politicians. People are lying to themselves, saying it's all okay, it'll go away. There's no conversation with family and friends around anywhere. People don't give thumbs up when I'm out there on the corner. In fact, they give derisive looks at me, and like I'm crazy or something or other. But I'm looking back at them like, don't you see what's happening? Things are out of control. So, where do you think this will end? you know, how's this going to end up for all of us? It's not going to go away, and it's only going to get worse, especially if it goes up to 1.5 degrees above the baseline, or up to 2 degrees, or 5 degrees, or 10 degrees. You know, things are spinning out of control, and we need to get out here and start protesting. You know, when you vote, you've got to vote for survival. You know, an easy thing for politicians to do right now, and if their politicians not saying this, they need to end subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. People need to get out on the street and do these types of protests and these type of broadcasts. And, you know, they could do, it doesn't require 50 people to do a protest. I'm going up here to Climate Change Corner, and that's right up here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And it's the corner at the square on York and the square in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. You could designate your own area also as well. So, you know, you got to protest like your life depends on it, and people aren't realizing how bad things are. They're not getting it. This year, we're going to see the unraveling of everything. This is 2022. We're going to start seeing the unraveling of everything. Around the whole world, no one is safe. And by 2023, the following year, next year, you're going to see some really bad things. And my guess is by 2026, we're going to be contemplating how are we going to survive this situation. So please don't sit by. Don't be watching your TV when you could be out here protesting or learning about climate change. Don't sit by doing your vaping and escaping. You know, your head's stuck in the sand. You know, if you've got friends who are that way or not listening to you about climate change, please try to convince them that how dire the situation is. I'm still waiting for you. Hopefully you'll turn out in your own Climate Change Corner and do some protesting on your own. So I'll catch you next week for number 162. See you later. Thanks for hanging in there.